Welcome back to the Lipoedema Podcast. We are your host, Shell
and Tiana, and tonight we are joined by a special guest, Lipoedema warrior, Jane Lyddiard. Jane, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. So we're going to get straight into it. How did you come to learn of lipoedema and when was that?
I've always known that there was something different about my legs right from when I was really little. They were always straight up and down, but it wasn't until I live on the Gold Coast and I drove past Walk with Freedom's big LED sign and I was like, oh my God, they're my legs. And so I literally Googled and was like, because I'd always heard of lymphedema and I was like, I don't have that because I don't swell. And I was like, oh, but then the lipedema, I looked it up and I was like reading all the symptoms and the signs and I was like, yep, that's definitely my legs. So I booked myself a 90-minute, the 90-minute Zoom call, went through it all and I was like, yeah, 100%. That's it. So yeah, thank goodness for the big sign.
It's amazing, right? And now that we've started talking about, people tell me about that. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I saw a sign. But
literally,
the sign is very important. So you said that you believe that your lipedema was developed when you were younger, you had the column-shaped legs, which is me as well. I've got column-shaped legs. Were there times that it progressed any further or became more apparent?
I just think as I got older, I think through my teenage years, definitely when I was younger, they were definitely that shape. And as I got older through the teenage years, they just got heavier. And I think through my 20s, heavier again. And when I would say it was probably around my 30s, I'd had enough. I was like, that's it. I want ankles. I'm done with this. I could never buy boots. I could buy anything with straps around my ankles. It just frustrated me. So I actually had liposuction, but just cosmetic liposuction. So he was great surgeon, but he was very adamant that it was just sculptural, but it was great. And it held, I would say, enough until probably getting into my 40s. And then I noticed that I was really starting to abnormally gain weight on my legs, particularly. And then also starting to notice in my arms and symptoms just increasing and increasing. And then I just came across the sign and by that point, I was done with it. I'd done everything I could possibly think of to keep it in check. And you could feel the snowball effect. It was just starting to really roll on. And I was exercising, doing F45, 4 to 5 times a week. I had in the previous been swimming and running and doing weights and my diet was the same. And I was just at my wit's end, really, just trying to figure out what was going on with my body.
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating. And we've said before, we put in all this effort and we don't see the results. So I just wanted to clarify that you had liposuction before you found out that lipedema was a thing. I did the same thing. I flew to Thailand and had my saddlebags removed 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did because then I had a massive progression. And imagine if I hadn't have had that. I'm like, oh my goodness, I would be in a world of dirt right now.
Yeah.
I can just imagine how wide my butt would be if I hadn't have done that.
Yeah. And I think it also made me confident going into the surgeries that, a lot of girls I see worry that it's about regrowth and that type of thing. And to be honest, that didn't faze me at all. And because I had the previous one and whilst it had progressed, I would never say it had regrown. In the areas that I'd had, yes, they were definitely bigger, don't get me wrong, but the shape held.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting.
Listen, if the shape could hold through pregnancy, then a bigger removal hopefully will mean that even if over time it does progress, it's not going to progress to the extent that it would. Because obviously doing it pre-menopausal versus or perimenopausal versus postmenopausal is a bit of a discussion. Yeah, in that regard, I'm just gonna go for it now while I'm healthy, while I've got no other health concerns. So I see what happens, but hopefully it can hold now. I can keep it under control.
But just a personal question, Jane, if you don't mind, because you were speaking about pre-perimenopause and post-perimenopause, where are you on that spectrum at the moment, if you don't mind sharing?
You girls would know better than I do that the doctors don't seem to like to diagnose. But I would say I'm 45. So I would say probably I'm on the edge of perimenopause now, going in that kind of phase. Yeah.
And you've had two
I actually-
pregnancies, and those, sorry, Shell, you've had two pregnancies, and those were after your liposuction
First.
or before?
After my first surgery. Yeah. So it was a couple of years after. Yeah. And one of my pregnancies, I didn't swell, and one I did.
Fascinating.
Both boys, I don't know. They just
different times a year.
Yeah.
similar times a year.
Yeah.
Bodies are amazing, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah,
So
I mean-
different. My boys are actually chalk and cheese. They're very different. So who knows? Maybe that's
With my-
that's why.
With my twins, I was just a puffball and very swollen and so much fluid. And then in this pregnancy, I don't feel so, yeah, there's a bit of swelling, but I don't feel so full of fluid, and my face looks the same. And it's
Yeah.
fascinating. And I wonder if it's because some of the lymphedema type or lymphatic health things that I've put in practice is paying off in this pregnancy, whereas I didn't know about that last pregnancy. Or like you, it's just a completely different experience, and there was just not as much swelling this time. So
Right.
hard
It's
to
interesting.
know.
And I wonder if it's because you've had your legs done, T, that maybe your lymphatic system's working better.
Better.
It hasn't got all of that pressure, and it's now able to do what it's supposed to do.
That's definitely a consideration.
All these
I
questions,
know.
so many-
Yeah,
And so little research, right? We need more
exactly.
research.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
it's mad. And especially like with all that menopause stuff. So I'm 50. And so I thought I must have had menopause, done all the thing. But no, my doctor said, no, not yet. I went, oh, okay. So I went and bought a menopause book. So there'll be a lot of menopause talk coming up because I'm researching and Tiana's been researching. So we're going to find out everything about menopause and perimenopause.
Awesome. Excellent.
So Jane, can you walk us through symptoms of stage 1?
Yeah. So I guess the biggest thing for me was the heaviness of my legs. And I actually didn't realize how heavy my legs and my arms actually were until post-surgery. It's funny, like I was talking to people, and it's just the really little things. Like I wasn't able to squat. I look healthy and fit and whatever, except for a heavier kind of lower body. But just like with a rack, like a bar, whatever they call it, weight into weights, not really. When you squat down, they'd always go right down. And I'd go halfway down and be like, what is that? Like I can't get any further down. That's not even possible. Post-surgery, go right down.
Wow.
So the range of movement was actually restricted, but I had never really understood that or realized that. So it's a really interesting kind of, so that bruising is obviously pretty consistent across the board. So my kids would just climb on me and literally my legs would be covered in bruises. The what do you call it? Blood pressure cuffs. I actually had no idea that hurt other people. It didn't hurt other people. No idea. I just assumed it hurt everybody. I was like, always think, I have to do this. It hurts so much. Yeah. Nobody said to me, oh, that's interesting that it hurts you. I wonder what else? Even just the heaviness of being able to blow dry your hair. Like I would always be shaking out my arms. I didn't actually really realize that I was doing that so much. Swelling, like just going on planes and things like that, I would always wear. And I'd actually, without even realizing it, I had been doing conservative management for basically my entire life. So as soon as there was compression things, I was like, oh, I need those. They might keep my legs in. So I've been wearing like 2XU compression tights for years.
Awesome.
Yeah, except that the ankle thing has always been a problem. The ankle cuff, discovering that you can actually get them under your foot. Amazing. It's like life-changing. I think that are probably the biggest symptoms. And obviously the shape. The shape when you're younger is probably more of a concern. As you get older, you go, oh, everybody's got something that they don't love about their body, and you've got kids and a husband and just move on. But I'm just excited to be able to wear shorts in summer when it's hot and not feel like my legs are just disproportionate and look a bit odd. And people, like I was saying to you girls before, a lot of people say, oh, you're stage 1. Oh, yeah, I would do anything to have legs that look like yours. And I'm like, everybody thinks the same things about their own body. So you are hypercritical of your own body and less critical of everybody else's body.
Mm.
And I think that through this journey has been interesting because I've said to people that have had this done and they're like, really? Why? And then I explain it to them and they're like, oh, I've never noticed that. And I'm like, never noticed my legs. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think it's also a symptom of the fact that we're really good at dressing for it. I think the Lipoedema girls are like, if you want to ask how to dress fashionably around body parts you don't like, I think we're actually the queens of it, literally. Like the number,
We are. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the
The
skinny
number of
jeans
times-
really messed us up, didn't it? Because
Right.
when the wide leg movement came, we were like, we have got this. Let's accentuate our tiny waist and we look
Right?
good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And the sneakers, constant sneaker wearing is like the best, right? Whoever decided that wearing sneakers with everything was a genius. So clever.
Yep. I'm actually lucky I have to wear clothes in shoes for work because I can't imagine having to dress for sandals and stuff. I can't do sandals. Sandals. So you've been through the symptoms of stage 1. So can you tell us now how lipedema affects your everyday life? Like how is it impacting you?
Post-surgery or pre-surgery, do you mean?
Both?
Oh,
Either.
I guess pre-surgery was really the biggest things was me being concerned about the future because I'm 5 and my boys are 12 and 9. Like they're fairly young and they're really active. And I was getting really lethargic and tired basically. And I didn't actually realize even just getting into the car and getting up and down off the floor and just walking, even in the kitchen, just cooking, like my legs have just been really tired and really puffy and you just brush it aside and you don't really think about it. It just is what it is. Post-surgery, I think I've really noticed that I'm getting back to where I used to be, which is where I'm like, oh, let's go for a walk or let's take the bikes out or let's do some things instead of being like, oh, mum just needs a rest on the couch, guys. Like, and for me, it's really about safeguarding my mobility into the future. And I think a lot of people say stage 1, oh, you shouldn't need to worry about surgery at stage 1 and all of those things. But to me, I'm healthy at this point, so I could handle the surgeries, could afford to do the surgeries at this point as well, which is obviously it's a big expense. And the fact that then I would get a really good long-term use out of the surgeries is a bang for buck. In my head, I'm like, why wait until it's progressed? Till I've got 4 or 6 or more surgeries to deal with. And then all of the recovery of that at a later stage when I can now use the benefits for the next however long. To me, that was fairly critical when I was looking at the surgeries. Honestly, I hesitated so little that I'd already organized it before I really even spoke to my husband about it. I was like, oh, and by the way, I've decided that I'm going to do this. And he was like, oh, okay. I was all in straight away. As soon as I knew that there was a way forward in terms of being able to reduce the symptoms and put a bit of a stop or at least a pause in it for the next little bit, I was all in.
Yeah,
I love that. And I also love that you touched on, like we talk a lot about mobility and not losing our mobility, but that tiredness.
Yeah.
Like they're not, and even if your body was able to, we're just tired because lugging around these heavy legs all day. And I'm finding that myself, like I didn't even go for a walk today because it's damn hot for a winter day today on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
But I was like, I was just spent. I had nothing left. I'm like, nah. And I didn't want to then push myself and go, I have to, and then just fall in a hole even worse. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I hadn't thought about that part of it.
Yeah. And actually, I'm surprised now. So I'm nearly 6 months post my first surgery and my lower legs now are pretty good. And I'm really noticing now as every week, it's just a bit better and a bit better. And I'm a bit less tired and a little bit less lethargic. And it's just, I guess it creeps up the symptoms creep up initially, but then the reduction of the symptoms has also incrementally reduced. So it's not like you wake up after the surgery and you're like, whoa, like I can go and do all these things. But it's a process, like everybody says, it really is. And in the same way, it's a progressive process to get to each of the stages. It's equally that backwards. Even at stage 4, I do think it's no walk in the park. Is it, Tiana? It's certainly no
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'd love for you to go through it in a bit more detail. So you said your first surgery was 6 months ago. What did that target and what was your experience? And then if you just want to go on, take us on the journey with you for each of your 3 surgeries. Let us know how you coped with all of them.
Sure. So my first one was lowers. My surgeon, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention names or Dr. Teo, who, by the way, big shout out, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. He's just the nicest person and so professional. But he literally was like, yeah, I think we'll just nail this in 3 if that's what you want to do. And I was like, whatever you think, you do this every day. So he did lowers initially. So from above my knee to my ankles. And because I'd had my ankles done previously, I was like, look, just go in hard, just get it all out. And around my knees, particularly because I had the pads on both sides, essentially, which always looks just in skinny jeans, as we all know. Nothing worse than trying to pull pants up over the top of those knees. And he did that initially for the first surgery. And I woke up in compressions and I was like, oh my God, they look incredible. I couldn't even believe that he pulled 2.4, no, hang on. Let me think back. It was more than that. It was 4 point something liters. I think 4 point. So it was like nearly 2 liters per leg. And to get, like in my head, I was like, oh, I was really hoping for 5. That's right. I was like, in my head, I was like, I'd really like to get to 5. Just pull the maximum out. And he was like, well, we got the maximum basically, but it was like, 4.2 or something. And I was a little bit disappointed initially. And then a ranker actually said to me, you understand that's 2-liter bottle of Coke on each leg that he's removed. And I was like, wow, when you think about, and in my head, I go, no wonder we're tired, right? If you strapped a 2-liter bottle of soft drink around your leg and stuff, tired.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you looked at me in the before photo, you probably wouldn't even really think that you could pull that much out. I like in my head, there's a bit of a discrepancy, right? You're in your head, you're like, oh, well, the maximum. What's the maximum? I want something close to 5, but you don't really think about it. And when she said that, I was like, I couldn't have told you that I had that much there at all. Like I would never have thought that. So when that was taken out, I was pretty stoked. And initially, the initial, obviously, shape change, you're in compressions in that initial shape, which is like epic. And that seeing those photos, those before and after photos, they gave me life for those 2 solid weeks where you just feel like the world is ending because your legs are swollen, you feel horrible. You just, in saying that you guys got kids, nobody had any sympathy here for me. So I think I spent about 3 days on the couch, about 3 days on the couch, I think, roughly. And then after that, it was like, where's this? Where's that? I need this, the usual. And my husband's been amazing, but they will walk past him.
Oh, 100%.
Even if I'm literally drug induced to sleep, they will wake me up and ask if
we're the default parent. I'll be in the shower. They'll walk past my husband on the couch to come to the shower to ask me to tie their shoes. I'm like, are you serious right now?
So this is the thing. And in fairness, I was talking to a rank about this as well. She's like, how are you up? And I'm like, making sure that you're walking. I'm like, I have no option. I'm up and I'm walking. And I guess it is a blessing in disguise because I very quickly realized that the more you move, the less you swell. Being asked to get off the couch 15 times a minute works out really well. I guess you have no opportunities, lays about and swell up. I'm just moving around and being and doing a lot of the things and even just bending and putting washing in and making lunch boxes, all of that is essentially pumping that swelling away. I think that helped, even if mentally I was like, I just really want to go back and lay on the couch and take a couple of extra Pentadol and knock myself asleep and wake up on the other side of this. But pain-wise, honestly, especially if you had kids, it's like the pain is like a walk in the park, right? I think initially, yeah, there's times that it's not great. Pulling compressions on and off is not fabulous. For anyone who's done it post-surgery, there's nothing pleasant about it. But it is what it is. You just follow directions, take the painkillers that they tell you to, and shed a few tears here and there, and then pull your big girl panties on and realize that this is really not the end of the world and we're going to be okay. And I think particularly having an MLD who is in dealing with post-surgery, like I had no idea when I was given a list of MLDs to approach pre-surgery, and I just went through the list and I got hold of a ranker and I arrived on her doorstep going, hi, what do I do? I don't know. And she just walked me through the process. And I think having the right people in your team really helped massively for me, because there was a lot of times where I would just text her and say, listen, what do I do here? I don't know. One in particular was when after I had my compressions, I felt like my fingers were going numb, and I'm just like, oh my God, what's going on here? And unfortunately, Dr. Hittio had gone overseas, and I was like, oh, I don't want to hassle Dr. Lecky. She's like, I'm sure this is nothing. So I messaged Aranka and she was like, oh my goodness, are your bandages still on? I was like, yeah, she take your bandages off. It's too tight. As soon as I took the bandages off, my fingers stopped being numb, and I was like, oh, okay. Simple things that, I mean, as someone that's experienced with this goes immediately, your compressions are too tight. In my head, I'm like, compressions can never be too tight because I'm trained everything. We don't know what we don't know. And having the right people in our team has been pretty critical, I think. So, yeah. And then my second one, I did them the first 2 8 weeks apart, which is the minimum that Dr. Leppich's team, I believe. And really purely because I booked it in because, quite honestly, I thought I would chicken out after the first one. So I just had the second one booked. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And I ummed and ahed about it quite a bit initially. When I first had the first surgery, initially you're like pumped. It's like amazing. This is so great. Look at these legs. And then you go through the swelling and all of the things post-surgical kind of recovery. And I think it was probably about week 6, maybe, where I started to go, you know what? I think I could do this again. I think at about week 3 or 4, I was like, I'm out. I'm done. This will do me fine. Like my upper legs, they're so fine. Don't worry me at all. And then by about week 6, 7, because I had it booked in, I knew I had it booked in. I started to go, actually, now that the swelling's down and now I can see the disproportion between my lower legs and my upper legs, I was like, yeah, you know what? This is amazing. And the time goes so quickly at the end of the day. And I was like, this is brilliant. I'm going in for the second one. And to be honest, I think in my head, I thought the second one would be an absolute walk in the park, because people talk about, oh, this one's harder and this one's easier. And I just think this is all really different, to be honest. And I guess everybody's body is really different. And it depends on your time spans between them and how much they take and all of the things. And I wish I'd rehashed on the things, because I know in total he's taken about 10 liters. So I think it's roughly about the same for my upper legs. But he did redo my knees again. I asked him to have a look at them. And he was like, basically, if you would like me to redo them, I will redo them. And I was like, okay, great, let's do that. Because they're probably the thing that bothered me more than my ankles, to be honest, because my ankles had been done previously and they weren't fabulous, but they were better. But my knees were the main area that was growing. And so he walked me through how he would do it and all of the things. And for full disclosure about the whole bum shelf thing or all of that stuff, he explained how he was leaving a section. I was a little bit concerned about that. But in hindsight, now looking at it, I'm glad that he left some, because nobody wants no booty, right? But it's also,
I was concerned about that too, that they would take. But luckily they did not. Like, thank goodness. How do you express that to your surgeon?
And I think that's testament to using a surgeon who's obviously very good at what he does and also has a bit of an aesthetic eye. He obviously understands that we're girls and that we want to look nice in clothes and all of that. And I'm super grateful to him for the way that he's just been able to sculpt, for want of a better word, as well as obviously doing the big removal. So I don't feel like I've just been shrunken or something. I don't know what the word is. I feel he's really gone in and removed in a really neat way. But it's really cool to actually see the muscles underneath that you've worked so hard for. That's literally, even my boys are like, did you got calf muscles, Mum? I'm like,
It's so exciting.
no. Years building these to never see them. I used to be able to see tiny little indent, but that was literally it. And now, like I've actually calf muscles. It's very cool. And then I wasn't sure timing wise on my third one, but it ended up, because there was a bit of to and fro, there's obviously dates around who's doing what surgery and timing and whatever. And in the end, because I had recovered so well between the two first ones, we decided to go ahead and do the last one. It ended up being 5 weeks.
Wow.
My second and my third. So my arms and my abdomen was 5 weeks after my second, which in all fairness is probably a little bit crazy. I probably wouldn't recommend it purely because it's tricky, right? Because in some ways it was great because I hadn't fully recovered from the other one. So it sort of didn't matter because each of them, obviously your body is inflamed. So each of them I feel personally set me back a little bit, I guess, in the recovery.
Recovery
a little bit
too.
What was that, sorry?
The recovery is cumulative. So you haven't fully recovered from the first surgery. You're recovering from 3 surgeries. Like it's
That's
hard
right. Yeah, it's a lot. But then equally, I guess the benefit in my mind was also that I'm recovering at the same time. I just basically get them all over and done with. I'm going to need to recover anyway. As you say, it's either you recover in between and you space them out, or you just do them all together and recover and know that I've got 6 to 12 months post all of those recovery wise. And to be honest, I don't know which is better. I think for me, it just worked out that I wanted to try and do all of the compression as much as possible in the cooler months. So pre-surgery compression I was wearing in December, which I highly do not recommend. So it makes it tricky to work the time frames around. But I think for me, being in Queensland, just trying to get them all out of the way and be transitioning out of compression into the warmer months now, as you can see, no compression. So I'm trying to do now, so I'm 13 weeks post arms and abdomen. So I'm trying to now wean myself a little bit off compression. And it's a tricky one because everyone is really different, I think. And because I didn't have a lot of skin retraction issues, it's really just about keeping the swelling intact and trying to keep it, what's the rank could call it? Oh, I can't think of what it's called, but the fibrotic kind of stuff that gets accumulated. So I'm just wearing my compressions at night. And so I've got Cialis because I'm in stage 1 as well. That's the other thing. Stage 1, I was recommended by Dr. Teo to use Cialis rather than a flat. So that obviously is a bit of a cost saving and a bit of a thickness wise. They're a little bit summer weight, although they are see-through when you go to the gym.
Not a pant.
Sorry?
Not a pant. You have to wear pants over the top. They're not a pant, but
they're not. Yeah. No, unless you're wearing a really long t-shirt, they are definitely when you bend over. So doubling it up with compression and tights in the height of summer to keep your on top of your exercise is a little bit hectic in Queensland. So yeah, look, I think so. I've got the Cialis full bodice top, and then I've just got the Cialis. But I've also got at a ranker's kind of recommendation. I ended up getting the ready wraps for ankles. I have my calves and my thighs ready wrapped and my knees. And they've been the best thing because they're so easy to increase and decrease depending on what you feel like you need.
What brand is that?
I think they're all ready wraps. I don't know exactly what brand.
Okay. Not sure. We'll have a check and we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, but they've been really great and I recommend them for anyone who asks me what I've used. I'm like, they've been great because initially, obviously you have your lipoelastics and whatever coming out of surgery, but I really felt like to me, they weren't compression enough. And I freaked out a little bit because I had been in compressions before. I was like, at least I don't feel tight enough. I feel like so the ready wraps were really good with spaghetti underneath because I could tighten them when I felt like I needed more compression, but when they got too tight, I could loosen them off. Through the night, much to my husband's disappointment, he would hear of the what do you call it? What's the word?
The Velcro.
Velcro. Yeah. You could dig your fingers in and just loosen them off all the way. It's very annoying noise apparently. But yeah, they were very handy. And in fact, now I've just been wearing my thigh wraps over the top of like my pajama pants, basically, just to be able to put compression where I need compression rather than the whole lot, because it's obviously getting hotter and hotter now. So it's a little bit tricky to balance. Yeah.
So you spoke about getting MLD with Aranka and compression wear using Cisalis and the ready wraps. How else are you managing? Oh, and also staying active. I think that's a really important one too. But is there anything else you're doing to manage your lipedema? Do you have a pump or vibration plate? Are you using the gloves from Chelsea Jane? Anything else you're doing that you want to share with us?
I had a vibration plate and I actually do have one in the cupboard. I had one from many years ago. Weirdly, I've been using it for a really long time. To be honest, I stopped using it a while back and I haven't dug it out, but I actually do need to dig it out again. I haven't done the whole pump thing, to be honest, mostly because I'm probably more active than anything. I think I would struggle to actually spend the time sitting on the couch. Maybe as I get older, that might be something to consider. Yeah, exercise wise, I just find, I know people say weights and whatever. To be honest, I find the cardio really makes the bigger difference to swimming and running and walking. And it's a bit of a balance I've always found between keeping on top of it and then obviously now knowing what it is, inflaming and causing my body to go the other direction. And I've always eaten low carb. I don't know if it's just a way that it makes me feel better, but I've always, I very rarely eat any kind of bread, or now I've added kind of low carb potatoes in purely because I want my boys to eat something and they lead by example and whatever. And B, just trying to keep the calories up, because I think I'm not dissimilar to majority of girls with lipedema. Over the years, we're very good at restrictive dieting and thinking that is going to help when obviously it actually fires on us. I'm conscious of trying to keep my calorie intake kind of up there. And it's obviously tricky to do the whole high protein thing all of the time, but at the very least, trying to eat low carb and as high protein as I can, and just eating cleanly, basically. That's pretty much always what I've done. But yeah, just really concentrating on that at the moment and reading lists of anti-inflammatory vegetables and fruits and trying to focus on that for the minute, because obviously in work, I'm just trying to bring that inflammation down as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, what a journey you've had. And look, we have come to our very last question. So it feels so quickly tonight. But if you could go back and give your younger self a pep talk, what would you tell her?
Look, I think I would say just not to stress about the whole leg thing, because the reality is people don't even notice it. And B, I probably would have pushed harder back a long time ago for answers. And I probably would have not stopped searching for answers. I probably, back when I was in my 20s or whatever, I was searching for kind of answers to this. But the reality is there wasn't really any answers. So I guess I gave up. I probably could have found out about these surgeries and the way to manage this in a lot longer ago, because there's research around sort of 10 and 15 years ago. So I do feel like I've missed 10 or 15 years of good years where I would have been more on top of it. In hindsight, when you look at it, I was already intuitively doing a lot of those things anyway. I guess it's a moot point. But yeah, if looking back, I probably would tell my younger self just to, keep searching for answers, because the reality is your body doesn't do odd things like this for no reason, really. I guess I just thought at the time it was just the way it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, like you said, intuitively, you knew that it wasn't right and you were looking after yourself the way that felt best for you. So you've done amazing. And to stay at stage 1, well done. Well done. Yeah.
I don't know whether that's just good management or good luck, but
I will take it, whatever it is.
We'll take it, a little bit of either.
We'll take it.
Absolutely. Look, and I definitely think that first surgery kept it at stage 1, I would say. It helped me keep it at stage 1. When people say they had a surgery and they need more, I'm like, that is what it is. If you broke a bone and you had surgery and then you required another surgery, you wouldn't say the first surgery was a fail. It's just sometimes it needs a bit of extra help, and it is what it is. And we're super lucky that we have medical professionals here in this country, even if we don't get Medicare yet. But if we keep spreading the word, eventually someone will listen to us.
Absolutely. Jane, thank you so much for joining us and being so brave and sharing your story.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me, girls. And thanks for doing this. It's an amazing platform. You've done really well with this. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Keep spreading the word.
We'll all do it together.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
When we started the Lipoedema podcast, we relied on word of mouth and existing connection.
Our following has happened organically, and we are so honoured by your support.
As we learn more about the world of social media and algorithms, we have a request.
When you are listening to our podcast or watching on YouTube, let us know what you think.
Hit follow or subscribe.
Leave us a comment or write a review.
The more engagement we get, the more our message is shared.
And the greater our reach to those women suffering in silence.
You're listening to the Lipoedema podcast. Lipoedema and its vary from individual to individual. The opinions and advice voiced in this podcast are of personal nature and used for education.
Please take away from this podcast what resonates with you, and please see your GP or preferred specialist for diagnosis and healthcare. We are Shell and Tiana from the Lipoedema Podcast. Until our next episode, bye for now.